The second speech by Moses in Deuteronomy ends in a surprise. I will read from the New International Version, the first verse of 29, just following the end of the speech. These are the terms, it is said, of the covenant the Lord commanded Moses to make with the Israelites in Moab, in addition to the covenant he had made with them at Horeb. So the question is, did God make more than one covenant with Israel? Welcome to another tidbit from Deuteronomy, the topic for our study this quarter, the last quarter of 2021. I'm Dr. Paul Petersen, and let's speak a little about the covenant, first within the context of Deuteronomy. Now, if we move back to the first of Moses' speeches, which is not too long, in chapter 4, we'll find that Moses here makes a very important distinction. Let's read from verse 12. Then the Lord spoke to you out of the fire. We are back at the feet of Mount Sinai. You heard the sound of the words, but saw no form. There was only a voice. And then it said, He declared to you his covenant, the 10 commandments, which he commanded you to follow, and then wrote them on 2 stone tablets. So the 10 commandments are here named the covenant. And in the following verse 14, Moses tells, And the Lord directed me at that time to teach you the decrees and laws you are to follow in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. So, there is here a clear distinction between the 10 commandments and what is here translated with the decrees and laws, hachutim vehamishpatim in Hebrew, which are to be followed by the people in the land they're going to possess. Now, this distinction between the 10 commandments and all the other commandments, you of course also see in the narrative of the event. That is, God spoke the 10 commandments with his voice directed to the people. He wrote them with his own finger on 2 tablets. All other decrees and laws were taught the people by Moses. He was a middleman. So that narrative distinction is clearly underlined when Moses here in his speeches east of Jordan reiterates and repeats the events. And as you look at these verses, you find that these are paying the groundwork for the following longer speech. That speech begins in chapter 5 and it ends in 28, so it's a long one. Moses summoned all Israel and said, we read, Hear Israel, the decrees and laws I declare you in you hearing today. Learn them and be sure to follow them. But then he moves back to Sinai. And in chapter 5, he describes the giving of the law at Mount Sinai, the 10 commandments, and he repeats them and explains them, motivates. There are some changes due to his pastoral concern. And then from chapter 6, he returns to the decrees that the people are to follow in the land. Notice the distinction, prepared by this distinction made in chapter 4, verse 13 and 14. First you have the 10 commandments, and then all the others. And he says, the Lord our God made this not with our fathers. Now some will wonder, because if you look at the generation of people standing in front of the promised land, were not their fathers part of those that heard the 10 commandments? Yes, but whenever Moses or Deuteronomy mentions our fathers, the thought is, or the reference is explicitly to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And with that, we will return to the wider context. We have seen just briefly how within the context of Deuteronomy, there is this distinction between the Ten Commandments and the other commandments. The Ten Commandments are applicable everywhere. Of the other commandments intended for the land, there is a limitation. As there's a limitation in time with the ceremonial laws that pointed to the ministry of Jesus and his on earth as a sacrifice and in heaven as high priest, so there is a geographical location or limitation. The principles may apply if we understand them, but there is a limitation. The Ten Commandments are unique. But let's look at this covenant in the larger context of Pentateuch and go back to Genesis, where Abraham in chapter 12 is called from Mesopotamia with the following words, first 3 verses of chapter 12. Leave your country, your people and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I'll make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Notice that in the covenant that God is now establishing with Abraham, the main theme of Genesis, in that covenant, repeated then to Isaac and Jacob, in that covenant, blessings and curses are extremely important. Now, the first curse in the book of Genesis occurred after the fall, and there were a lot of curses then. Now, the first blessing arrives with Abraham. It is a purpose, God's purpose, of calling Abraham that his people are to be a blessing. They are to counter the curses of the fall. And this theme of blessing runs through, permeates all of Genesis. Remember the story about Jacob and his fight to receive a blessing, which he received because of God's determination, certainly not because of his own achievements. Now, this theme of blessings and curses is a major theme also in, yes, you have it, in Deuteronomy. In the end of the major sermon or speech in chapter 28, Moses reiterates the blessings and the curses. And then there is a third speech in chapters 29 and 30, which concludes with this immensely strong appeal. Let's read from chapter 30, verse 15. Moses speaks to the people, "See, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. For I command you today to love you, the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and to keep his commands, decrees and laws. Then you will live and increase, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to possess. But if you do not, if your heart turns away and you are not obedient, then the curses will hit." Verse 19, "This day I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life." God established a covenant with Israel for the people to be blessed and to become a blessing. There were conditions for that covenant. Every covenant God made had these three elements. The promises of God. This is what I, God, will do for you. And then the conditions. This is what you have to do in order to stay within that covenant. The obedience. And then there's a third element. That is a confirmation, the ratification of the covenant. That was established with blood, with the sacrifice. If you look at Deuteronomy, that is not emphasized as strongly here. Why not? Because the previous books of Moses have emphasized it. And this is in the context of the whole of Pentateuch, that Moses presents the blessings, the promises of God, the conditions to the people of obedience. Choose life. And it's all based on the sacrifices that pointed forward to the one and unique sacrifice once and for all when Jesus was crucified on the cross. Thank you for listening to this tidbit about the covenant in Deuteronomy. Welcome back as we continue our study and reflections on Deuteronomy in this last quarter of 2021.